And so I think that's why you're kind of seeing this divide within the manosphere on this topic, because some guys are kind of sticking to like that old way of thinking of, I ain't no trick, I ain't tricking, I ain't paying for it. And some guys are just kind of going with the flow of what's happening. But next, I want to talk about the pros and cons of tricking. And then I'm going to go into the pros and cons of free pussy. All right, so let's start with the pros and cons of tricking. And we're going to start with the pros. So the first pro of tricking is you can get access to women who are out of your league. And I talked about this a little bit on the Night Walk vlog where I talked about this. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not against tricking, even though I wouldn't do it, because for some guys, like I said, you are not going to have sex. I mean, I don't care what you do, what you say. You are not going to have sex with very, very attractive women. Like 8s, 9s, and 10s. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for you. And let's be real, bro. Like most of us, we would love to have that experience. Like, I know the whole time when I'm playing like Resident Evil 5, I'm looking at characters like Sheva and Excella. And these women, even though they're video game characters, they're very realistic and attractive, they would be considered like 9s and 10s, right? Or even when I'm looking at porn, like, or when I'm out and about, in that rare instance where I see like a very attractive woman, even I gotta admit, like, it's like there's this part of me that's like, damn, I kind of wish that I could have that experience, like wouldn't every man at least once just want to be with a highly attractive woman, a woman that you just like, like you like not an average girl, not in a, but like I'm talking like when you see her, you have no chance, right? And when you open yourself up to tricking or paying for sex, then you can have that. You can have that experience and more, man. Like it's there. It's right. It's like, like even now, like I feel, I can feel that demonic energy like pulling me in. Like it's right. It's right there, Marco. You can have it. All the things you masturbated to. Right? Like I get it. I get it, man. And so that's one of the reasons why like I would never shame guys for tricking, because I know that feeling, dude. I know that feeling. I'm strong enough to resist, but I know that feeling, and to know that you can have that experience or at least some semblance of it for a fee, $500, $1,000 or so. I mean, damn. And especially if you're making good money. Yeah, man. And so another pro of tricking is that you save time and energy, right? And so another argument that I'm seeing that tricks bring forth is that, okay, you guys say you don't pay for sex. Okay, you might not be paying with money, but you're still paying with time and energy. And I think that's a very valid point, because, excuse me, even with guys who would be considered like players or alpha males, not all of them, but now this is especially true for like guys that are more average level though, right? But the whole point is that you might not be paying in dollars, right? But the amount of time and energy that it takes you to get a woman in bed is either equal or even worse than the amount of money that a trick would have had to pay to get the same experience, or at least to sleep with a woman of a similar level of attractiveness. Because it's important to understand that money is not the only currency, right? Your energy is limited. Your time is limited, just like your money is limited. And so if you're investing a lot of time and energy into a woman just to get sex in return, you know, that can be just as devastating as a guy, you know, spending all his hard-earned money on prostitutes and digging himself in a hole, right? Not just in terms of like losing money, but even becoming addicted to the experience of paying for sex, you know. And I noticed this with one of my good friends. I mean, he was definitely a boyfriend trick. He was definitely a fucking boyfriend trick. But with the boyfriend trick, that's probably the most dangerous position, because you don't just invest money. It's also a lot of time and energy, right? Because I've seen guys get in these situations and it just, like, these girls demand so much of them to maintain that relationship that it's absolutely bonkers, man. So again, it's a very valid point. If you are open to tricking, then you don't have to really think so much about like different like PUA strategies and how I'm going to approach. I gotta nag her and then do this. You know, you don't gotta do none of that shit. Just pay, fuck, leave. So another benefit of tricking is it can help you avoid false rape accusations. Now, this is a kind of an underrated one, really. And I think this is more so something that you see with celebrities, right? This is something that can really help out somebody who's famous. Because you see a lot of times with these guys who are athletes or rappers or actors, and they're able to use their status as a means to attract a lot of women and get free sex out of them. But you also notice that a lot of these guys get jammed up with like false rape accusations and shit like that. And, you know, I think the whole Kobe situation, RIP, but that whole Kobe situation, you remember when Kobe got accused of rape, right? And then everybody was mad at him because they said that he dry snitched on Shaq. No, I said Shaq. Because he dry snitched on Shaq and said Shaq pays his women, right? But the funny thing about that situation is that, you know, Kobe was pretty much on my team, right? No tricking. And Shaq was a trick. But Kobe was the one who got jammed up with a false rape accusation. And Shaq, as of yet, hasn't gone through any shit like that, right? And so this is what I think. And it might sound kind of, I don't want to say mean, but I don't know. It might sound evil on the part of women. Maybe not even evil, but petty, right? And I think that with women, when they're giving out their sex, they want to always feel compensated. And I think a lot of times with these situations of like false rape accusations aimed towards like famous men, wealthy men, I mean, you can look at things like the Mike Tyson situation, the Tupac situation and shit like that, right? As other examples. Now, I'm not saying these guys were innocent. At the end of the day, we'll never know. But just let's assume they were innocent, right? Why would these girls do that? You know, these were all situations where these guys got this sex for free. And I think that women, for the most part, they want to feel compensated when they give a man sex. If they don't feel like this, like your sex for her sex is an equal exchange, she's gonna want more. And I think that with a lot of these guys who got caught up in false rape accusations, I think the simple fact was that if they would have paid that girl up front, it wouldn't have been an issue. The problem was that she wanted more but couldn't get it, right? She might have thought that she would get a relationship out of it. She might have thought that she would get pregnant, whatever, right? But for her to just give this man access to her body and to get nothing in return, I think that it does something to them. I think that it puts them in a very vindictive, toxic state of mind. And again, I'm talking specifically about women who do false rape accusations, not when they really get raped, right? And I think that in their mind, they might not even think they're doing something wrong. It's just that I gave him sex, I didn't get anything back. Wait, I was raped, and I honestly think like that's kind of the mindset of these women. And so when you decide that you're just gonna pay women up front, it kind of shields you from this. And I think that as a celebrity, as a man of means, you really got to think about this. At least as far as like dealing with women who are just groupies and are trying to give it to you for free, you should be very careful with them. And this kind of leads into my final point as far as like one of the pros of tricking, and that's that they come and go as you please. You know, I know you guys have heard it before, but I've heard people say, as a celebrity, as a rich guy, as a famous guy, I'm not paying for sex, I'm paying them to leave, right? And that makes perfect sense, because sometimes as a man, you just want to scratch that itch and keep it moving. But when you're dealing with a girl in a normal way, right? You're just dating, hooking up and whatnot. To some extent, clear boundaries are not drawn as far as the intricacies of your relationship, right? They might just start popping up out of nowhere, calling you, you know, expecting different things, right? And so you would have to really make it clear that, look, this, you ain't that, this, right? But with a prostitute, with a sex worker, you already know what it is. Look, I just want you for this hour. I just want you for 2 hours, whatever. If I want you again, I'll call you, don't call me. But when dealing with normal women, you can't really have that, because inevitably they're going to expect more, especially if you're a celebrity. If you're like a high value man, they're going to expect and they're going to want more. And so they're going to try to ease themselves more and more into your life, right? And then that can be kind of a nuisance to deal with. And if you're just paying women, then you're in complete control as far as like, you get them when you want them and you toss them to the side when you no longer want them. So let's talk about the cons, right? So the first one is it's illegal in a lot of places. Wait, no, I fucked up. I skipped one. We're gonna get there. But the first con is that it costs money, right? Let me get a sip. So this one is self-explanatory. When you decide that you're going to the bottle pop, when you decide that you're going to open yourself up to the world of tricking and paying for sex, the obvious downside is that it's going to cost money. And, you know, one thing I noticed is that within the manosphere, when you have guys who are pro tricking, who are down for tricking, it seems to me that a lot of them argue from the perspective of the guy that's like already well off. You know, again, the whole, it's not tricking if you got it, right? Not saying again, like it's not tricking, but if you got it, it's not a big deal to be paying for sex, right? But the reality is that most guys don't got it. That's the reality. And just like that article said, one of the common traits amongst guys paying for sex was that they tended to occupy a lower level of socioeconomic success, right? So men who were on the side of maybe not necessarily living in complete poverty, but, you know, not really middle class or high class either, right? Most of the guys paying for sex are you know, again, not broke, but they ain't really got it to the point where they can brag about tricking, right? When they trick, it's gonna take a toll, right? And I think it's important to acknowledge this aspect of tricking. It's one thing if you just balling and it's nothing to you, but the fact is most guys are not balling. Most guys don't have a lot of money, right? And so for the average person to participate in paying for sex, it can set you back, right? You have some guys who married men taking money out of their family household just to buy sex, just to maintain some little hookers on the side and shit like that. And it can take its toll. And I think it's important to point that out because we often look at it from the perspective of, I got it, so it ain't a big deal. But a lot of guys simply don't have it. And so it is a big deal, especially if it's something that you become addicted to, because it can get in the way of you handling other financial responsibilities, neglecting your family and shit like that. I mean, that's real. That's real. And I think that it has to be addressed. Another con is that it's illegal in a lot of places. We all know that dealing with prostitutes can get you jammed up legally. Now, really, to be honest, I don't hear about that a lot. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure there are probably still sting operations and shit like that. But to be fair, I can't remember the last time I heard about a guy getting arrested because he was paying for sex. Usually when I hear about someone getting in trouble who's involved in that line of work, it's the pimp. It's usually the pimp that's getting in trouble, not the sex worker, not the hoe, not the trick or the John. And again, that's just me in my little bubble. Maybe I don't know better, but I don't really notice that a lot. But it should be pointed out that because it's illegal, it is a risk as far as your freedom. Okay, so another con is that it exposes you to criminal pimps. Right. And so this is another thing that I'm sure you guys have heard of, but there is definitely a thing where tricks or johns are set up by prostitutes to basically get robbed. I don't know if you guys know of this rapper called Max B. He's in prison now, but the case that he was involved in basically went like this. This girl that he was seeing, I think she was a stripper or she was a hooker or something. She got involved with this guy who was like a square, but he had money. So essentially he was a trick. He was tricking off on her. But she was still dealing with street dudes. And so she's telling the street dudes, hey, I'm dealing with this trick who got money. We can set him up to rob him. Right. And so she's able to set him up to get robbed, but during the robbery, one of his friends ends up getting killed, and the rapper Max B gets tangled up in the case because the girl, the sex worker, was his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend or something like that, and she snitched on him saying that he helped set everything up, right? But the point is that is a situation that happens more often than you think. Right? Because the fact is, when you're dealing with women who are in the sex work industry, even though pimps are not as much of a necessity as they used to be, a lot of them still do have pimps, right? There's still value in having a smart business-minded man in your corner. But the fact is, a lot of these guys also tend to be street dudes, right? And these women, they pay attention to the different guys that they deal with. Like, oh man, like this guy is a doctor, or he's a lawyer, he got money, he trapping, whatever. And so they going back to them pimps and telling them like what's going on with these guys. And it depending on the mindset of her pimp, he might not just be into selling pussy, right? He might be into robbing and shooting and killing too, selling dope. You never know, right? And so one thing that has happened quite often is that tricks get set up by the girls that they try to pay for, right? For whatever reason. It definitely happens. That's a risk that you run into because a lot of these girls who will meet up with you and have sex with you, a complete stranger, they're not going to just go there completely ass out, right? They're not going to go there and be completely vulnerable. You go to that hotel room, you think it's just her when her pimp is in the next room, right? And he knows if he don't get a phone call after 1 hour, to busting that bitch with a gun, right? Like, these girls are not dumb. And so, but that's just one of those things that you got to look out for, In fact, I would say you got more of a risk getting set up by a hoe than getting caught up in a sting operation. And one of my favorite YouTubers is Soldier the Game Spitter, and he talked about this shit a little bit, and he was talking about how he was advising men or telling guys, like, when you meeting up with a hooker or a prostitute, make sure you got your guns. Make sure you let her know I kill you if you try to sit he was talking some gangster shit. You definitely got to check out his channel, Soldier the Game Spitter. But yeah, he was talking about it too, man. Like, you gotta be careful with these hoes. He said that have your guns, let her know you not playing, you been not trying no shit. Because again, some of these girls, they savages, and they boyfriends and they pimp savages. Like, and if they know you an easy mark, they'll take that shit, And you gotta think, you real vulnerable when you trying to fuck. Like you're very vulnerable when you trying to fuck. So it's like the best time to set you up. So the next con is, sometimes there are limits on what you can do with the girls, right? And so this is going to depend on how you approach dabbling and tricking or paying for sex, right? Because it does vary. But just as an example, for sure, if you're picking up like a random prostitute, you don't know her, y'all just hooking up for the night, you gave her 100 for an hour, 200 for an hour, whatever, right? You probably not gonna eat that pussy, right? You probably not gonna eat raw prostitute pussy. You like, come on, dog. Don't be out. You eating raw prostitute, hooker, sex worker pussy. Like, most guys with some sense not gonna do that. But you know what? Maybe you like eating pussy, but you know damn well you can't do that with this prostitute. I can't eat this, man. She done had 8 dudes in her today. I can't eat this bitch out, right? Another thing is, you got some prostitutes that are like, you can't kiss, right? So you can't make out with the bitch. Not saying you would want to, but some guys are into that. They want to get kind of intimate, but a lot of these girls, they don't want you to kiss them, right? There's a no kissing policy. Some girls, like, they only suck dick with a condom. Who the fuck want a condom blowjob, right? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, another con to it is that a lot of times there's going to be limits on what you can do with the girl, right? Now, again, this varies depending on like your approach, and because if you know where to go and who to go to, then man, you could do more. You could potentially do more than what you could do with an average chick, right? But generally speaking, the average prostitute is gonna have some type of limitation because of the risk of STDs, if nothing else, right? Where you might want some raw sex, but you can't get that from a prostitute because she don't want to catch nothing from your ass, right? Some of them won't even give you a condomless blowjob. And again, who the fuck wants a blowjob with a condom? So that's another con of tricking, right?